Hey guys, welcome back. This is the story about what if Naruto was master of forbidden jutsu Jiongu. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well, it really means a lot. So let's start the what if. Hokage's office, 1 month later. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed for what seemed to be the 100th time that day, and it wasn't even 10 o'clock yet. He was beginning to think that there was a replicating seal on the bottom of his box, because this had to be the 4th time he rejected this form to kick Naruto out of Konoha. Will you stop sighing already? You're gonna make me go crazy, Tsunade said as she looked over her own share of papers. I have to agree with Tsunade-sama, Shizune put in her own 2 cents as she looked over a mission report. Hokage-sama, teammate is waiting for you to receive a mission, his secretary said over the intercom. Hiruzen pressed the talk button and said, send them in. Teammate, lead by Kurenai, entered the office and stood before the Hokage's desk. Hi Gigi, Bachan, Shizune-chan. Naruto greeted. Naruto. Show the Hokage and Lady Tsunade some respect, Kurenai scolded. Hiruzen chuckled and said, it's fine Kurenai, we're all familiar with Naruto, there's no need to yell at him for something I allow him to do. My apologies, Hokage-sama, Kurenai stuttered. She then whirled around and sent a glare at Naruto and Hinata who were trying to stifle their giggles. The two clammed up, but couldn't keep their smiles off their faces. Kurenai sighed and turned back to the Hokage. I've decided that we're ready for a C-rank mission Hokage-sama. Yada! No more chasing that demonic cat. Naruto cheered. Hinata and Shino cheered as well, though silently. Kurenai decided not to reprimand her student, having done something similar when she was a genin. She shivered as she remembered Tora's special treatment whenever she had to pick up the cat. The other older shinobi also shivered as they remembered their experiences with the daimyo's wife's cats. Hiruzen shook his head and said, yesterday it was Kakashi and Team 7, now you and Team 8. I wonder if Asuma and his team are going to come in tomorrow. As predicted, Naruto exploded, what? You mean Sasuke-tame got a C-rank mission before me? Before anyone could respond, the office doors burst open and a small brown pug ran in with a small scroll on its back. The 4 hidden Anbu jumped into action and surrounded the pug with their tontos pointed at it. It's me Hokage-sama, the dog spoke. If you're really packin', you know what volume of Ika Ika Paradise Kakashi loves more than the rest, Hiruzen stated as he observed the dog. Packin huffed and deadpanned, Kakashi loves Ika Ika Paradise 3 which features his favorite female character Tsunade Senya. It's packin', only a select few people know about that little fact, Hiruzen confirmed. The Anbu withdrew their swords and retreated back into the shadows. Why does that name sound familiar? Naruto asked himself. Tsunade was sweating bullets on the inside, only she and Shizune knew where Jiraiya got the inspiration for Tsunade. Somehow, she had missed him when she was at the hot springs sometime in the past. Maybe I'm imagining it, I've never heard that name before, Naruto said. Tsunade mentally sighed in relief. While this was happening, Hiruzen was reading the scroll that Pakken delivered. When he put it down, he had a very troubled look on his face. Teammate, Hiruzen began, you are to travel to Nami to assist Team 7 in their protection mission. They have encountered 2 Chunin Nukenin who are known for their connections to Zabuza Momochi. Hokage-sama, wouldn't it be wiser to send in a more experienced team? Kurenai asked. Hiruzen sighed and said, the recent influx of missions from Kaze no Kuni has left us with less men than usual. You are the only team that can be ready to leave as soon as possible. After a minute of thinking, Kurenai said, teammate accepts this mission Hokage-sama. She then turned to her team and said, head home and pack for a month-long trip, be at the southern gates in an hour at the most. Hi, the 3 genins said before they left the office and went to go prepare for their mission. Southern gates. Naruto and Shino were waiting patiently for Hinata and Kurenai so they could leave. Do you know anything about Nami Shino? Naruto asked. All I know is that it's a small nation with a civilian village that relies on its sea trading to prosper, Shino told him. I also remember a story that Nami was protected by a hidden village that was destroyed by Kiri, Iwa, and Kyumo in the Second Shinobi War. Wow, it took 3 great villages to destroy just one? Naruto asked in amazement. And only 93% of the attackers died in the assault, Kurenai said as she walked up to the two. Naruto whistled and said, that village must have been really tough. Before anyone could say anything else, Hinata ran up to them and bent over in exhaustion, her face red and slightly sweaty from running so hard. I'm sorry, I was late. The members of the Hyuga Council wanted to hear about this mission because it is higher than a D rank, Hinata explained. Please tell me they didn't insult you while you were explaining it, Naruto pleaded. Hinata just looked down, confirming Naruto's suspicions. Why would they insult Hinata? Shino asked. Naruto scowled and told him, the Hyuga Council doesn't like the fact that Hinata-chan is kind and caring instead of being a cold jackass like the rest of them. Naruto! You shouldn't insult the elders of a clan like that. Kurenai scolded. Kurenai-sensei? Hinata began. Naruto-kun is right though. Naruto grinned in triumph while the older woman dropped her jaw seeing the disrespect that was being given. The Jonin-sensei shook her head and asked, do you guys have everything you'll need for our mission? Seeing all of them nod their heads, she turned to Naruto who was the only one without a pack. And where is your supplies? Naruto then pulled out a storage seal and showed Kurenai. She took the scroll and unsealed it, watching as a good amount of supplies poofed into existence. Naruto, how did you seal all of this stuff into the scroll? It shouldn't be able to hold all of this stuff, Kurenai asked. Naruto rubbed the back of his head and said, I've been studying Fuinjutsu for a year after Gigi gave me a book on it as a birthday gift. He said I have a real talent for it after he gave me a little test. I discovered that if you use a higher character for the seal you can seal larger items into it, or you could seal more items than normal. I'm no seal expert, but I can tell that these are really advanced, Kurenai said as she inspected the scroll. Naruto then sealed everything back into it and put the scroll back into his pocket. Okay team, let's go. Kurenai ordered. Team 8 then ran down the road, heading for Nami. Later in Nami, Team 7 had gotten off of a boat that had taken them to their destination. With them was their client, Tazuna the bridge builder. The group of 5 then traveled deeper into the forest, all of them on guard after their little run-in with the demon brothers. Kiba's advanced hearing alerted him to some rustling bushes beside the group. Get Imakameru! Kiba commanded. The small dog ran into the bushes and came back moments later chasing a white rabbit. Kiba! Sakura yelled, sending a harsh glare. How could you try to kill such an adorable creature? If Hinata found out, she'd skin me alive. And then, she'd make me eat my intestines. Kiba wailed. Little known fact about Hinata, she loves rabbits, especially when Naruto once compared her to one when they were little. She's been trying to get Hayashi to let her keep one in the compound, but he's been against it due to his fear about what the elders might do if they found out. That rabbit is white, yet we're in the wrong season for that kind of fur, Kakashi thought as he observed the animal with a lazy eye. That means that this rabbit was kept indoors, only to be used for one purpose, Kawarimi. Suddenly, a whizzing sound came to his ears, causing the Jonin's eye to widen. Get down! Kakashi yelled as he tackled Tazuna to the ground. The genin jumped to the ground as a massive sword over their heads and embedded itself into a tree, where a figure landed on the handle of the blade. He was a tall muscular man with short spiky black hair. He had bandages wrapped around his face in the same manner as Kakashi's mask. He was shirtless, save for a belt that looked like where he would hold his sword, and camouflage-designed arm warmers. He had blue, baggy pants that were covered by leg warmers of the same design. On his head in a sideways manner was a headband that had the insignia for Kirigakure no Sato. Kakashi Hatake the copy ninja, the man began, I never would have expected to meet you here of all places. No wonder the demon brothers failed. Zabuza Momochi, the Kirigakure no Kijin. I assume that you are after the bridge builder as well? Kakashi asked. That's right, so why don't you leave him here while you take your brats back to Konoha? It might keep them alive for a little while longer, Zabuza told him. Kakashi-sensei, who is this guy? Sakura asked. His name is Zabuza Momochi, an A-rank nukenin from Kiri who fled after a failed assassination on the Mizukage, Kakashi informed her. He's on a whole other level from those other guys we faced. Stay here and protect the bridge builder, I'll handle Zabuza. Cute, Zabuza chuckled. These brats think that they're real ninja. Don't mock me, I'll show you the power of an elite, Sasuke said as he leveled a glare at Zabuza, who didn't even acknowledge him. The former Kiri ninja jumped off of his blade and dislodged it from the tree before landing on a lake only a few meters away from the Konoha team. In response, Kakashi placed his hand on his headband like he was preparing to lift it up. Oh, so I get to see the famous Sharingan already? Zabuza asked, shocking the genin. Sharingan? But Kakashi isn't an Uchiha. Is he? Sasuke thought as he turned his gaze to his teacher. What's he talking about? Who cares, he's probably just trying to mess with our heads. Cha! Sakura and inner Sakura thought. Isn't that the Kekkagenkai of the Uchiha clan? Did Kakashi-sensei steal one? Kiba thought. Kirigakure no Jutsu. Zabuza declared as the mist thickened and he vanished within it. Kakashi pulled up his headband and revealed a closed eye with a scar running through it, but when he opened it, it was a red eye with 3 black tomos surrounding the pupil. Sasuke looked like he was seeing a ghost when he saw Kakashi's hidden eye. All of a sudden, the air felt thick and heavy as a shadow of despair hung over the young teenagers. 8 points. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Which will be my point? Zabuza's voice whispered from everywhere, yet nowhere. Kakashi radiated his own Ki to counter Zabuza's own. This feeling, it's so intense it's making me shake, Sasuke thought as his hand slightly shook in fear. It makes me want to just end it here so I don't experience it anymore. He unconsciously brought his kunai closer to his neck. Sasuke! Kakashi called out, snapping the Uchiha from his trance. Don't worry, I'll protect you with my life. He turned and gave the genin a double-eye smile to calm him down. Will you now? Zabuza asked as he appeared between the 3 genin and Tazuna, his sword in a position where it would cleave them all in half. But before he could do anything, Kakashi rushed forward and buried his kunai into Zabuza's side, but when he pulled it out, water flowed freely from the wound. Mizu Bunshin? Kakashi questioned as Zabuza fell into water. Sensei! Behind you! Kiba yelled. Another Zabuza appeared behind Kakashi before he could react and sliced him in half with his blade. Ha! You never should have expected it to be that easy, Kakashi. Zabuza gloated. However, Kakashi fell into water as well and the real Konoha Jonin appeared behind the nukenin with a kunai to the throat. You should follow your own advice, Kakashi said. His genin were relieved that their sensei was still alive. Zabuza snorted. So you were able to copy my Mizu Bunshin within the mist while you made your little speech. Impressive. This fight is over, you've lost, Kakashi declared as he put the kunai closer to Zabuza's neck. But to his surprise, Zabuza began to chuckle darkly, putting everyone on edge. You really think you've won? Zabuza asked. You actually think that I'll be defeated by a mere copycat like you? Think again, another Zabuza said as he appeared behind Kakashi. The Jonin cut the first Zabuza's throat to reveal that he was another clone. Aha! Another Bunshin! Sakura wailed. Zabuza then kicked Kakashi through the air, hard, and sending him into the lake. Zabuza then moved his sword to his back before running after him on top of the water. Why is this water so heavy? Kakashi asked himself as he struggled to get free. Zabuza flickered into existence behind him and made several hand seals. Suiton, Water Prison Jutsu. Zabuza then stuck his hand out as a sphere of water formed around his hand and Kakashi. You can't escape, this water is stronger than steel due to how dense this jutsu makes it. You're not going anywhere anytime soon, Zabuza informed him. He then created a Mizu Bunshin that turned its sights on the rest of Team 7 and Tazuna. What do we do? Kiba asked. Kakashi-sensei's been captured. Sasuke stepped forward and said, isn't it obvious? We rescue him and beat this guy. No. Forget about me. Take the bridge builder and run to safety. You don't stand a chance against him. Kakashi yelled from within the prison. It doesn't matter what they do, Zabuza chuckled. What's to stop me from killing you right here and go take care of them myself? Face it, Kakashi, you've lost. I'm not quitting here. Let's go, Akamaru. Kiba shouted as he threw a soldier pill to the small dog. Akamaru ate the pill and his fur turned a menacing red as he growled at Zabuza. Beast Mimicry Jutsu. Kiba cried as his nails grew and he crouched down on all fours. Jujin Bunshin. Akamaru then turned into an exact copy of Kiba. The two then tensed up as they prepared to attack. Getsuga. Kiba yelled as he and Akamaru turned into twin tornadoes of claws. The duo then sped towards Zabuza. Worthless. Zabuza's clone then turned his sword sideways and bashed the two away. Akamaru turned back into a dog and impacted against a tree, and Kiba skidded along the dirt before he rested on the ground. Sasuke-kun, you need to save us. Sakura screamed. Sasuke said nothing, but knew that she was right. The last loyal Uchiha dashed forward and aimed a kick at the Nuke-nin, but Zabuza merely caught him by the foot and threw him to the side. It's too bad, I don't take pleasure in ending the lives of kid ninjas, Zabuza muttered. But it can't be helped sometimes. Not if we can help it. A metal claw burst out of the trees and dispelled the Zabuza clone. The real Zabuza hid his shock as four figures shot out of the trees. I thought Haku was supposed to warn me if anyone else came, Zabuza thought. Wait, now that I look at it, they came from his blind spot. Can't blame the kid for that. Kurenai. What are you doing here? Kakashi yelled from within the water prison. Hokage-sama sent us as your backup. There was nobody else available, Kurenai explained as she observed her surroundings. Kiba was holding onto an unconscious Akamaru, Sasuke was down on one knee, and Sakura was close to wetting herself as she stood by Tazuna, who somehow looked less scared than the pinkette. She then looked towards the lake where Kakashi was. He was still within the water prison along with Zabuza's arm. Standing on the shoreline were two Mizu Bunshin that stood there with their swords outstretched in a defensive manner. Shino, I want you to protect Kiba, Akamaru, Sakura, and the client. Naruto, Hinata, I want you two to assist me in freeing Kakashi. Sasuke, can you still fight? Kurenai asked. Sasuke grunted as he stood up. Kurenai took that as a yes and turned back to Zabuza. I want you two to stick with me and provide me backup as I take care of the clones, Kurenai ordered. Naruto, I want you to try and free Kakashi. Your long-range attacks will be very useful here. Try to force Zabuza's arm to release his hold on the water prison. Long-range attacks? I don't think your fire bullet will work here, that sword looks like it'll just brush them away, Sasuke said. Did you really think that was the only thing I know? Naruto asked. I've been training for a long time, I just decided not to show everything in the academy. Sasuke just grunted and crouched down as he prepared to dash forward. Great, more brats, Zabuza sighed. At least these look a little competent, Zabuza Bunshin once said. It doesn't matter, they're still brats, in the end, Zabuza Bunshin 2 snapped. Will you two quit it? Zabuza growled. They're coming. Kurenai, Sasuke, and Hinata charged the clones while Naruto darted for the real Zabuza, but stopped when he reached the water. Kurenai was alternating between both clones, not wanting to leave either one alone with the genin. As she dashed away from one Sasuke was currently keeping on the defensive, she ran towards Hinata's opponent whose sword had a small dent in it, courtesy of a Jukin palm strike. Since the Mizu Bunshin was weaker than the original, Kurenai was able to get behind it and drive her kunai into its side, dispelling the water construct, and allowing the two females to assist Sasuke. What's this brat gonna do? Zabuza thought as he stared at Naruto. He doesn't look like he knows the water walking technique, so he might either use some kunai and shuriken, or a jutsu. I should be able to block any of them with Kubikura Bocho. But Zabuza and Kakashi were surprised when Naruto just drew back his fist and punched the air in front of him, and sent his gauntlet-covered hand flying towards Zabuza. The Kirigakure no Kijin was able to position his sword just in time to deflect the arm and send it flying upwards and revealed that the arm was connected to Naruto by threads. Several more threads shot out of the connecting threads and aimed at Zabuza's arm that was holding the water prison. Deciding to keep his arm from getting any holes in them, Zabuza pulled his arm away, letting the water prison fall away. Little brat! Zabuza roared as he went to dash towards Naruto, but his arm was then grasped in a vice grip, courtesy of Kakashi. Now, you're dealing with me, Kakashi said as he glared at Zabuza with his Sharingan, the red eye making the Jonin look menacing. Everyone could feel the tension that was forming from the two high-level ninjas that were standing on the lake. Naruto quickly retracted his arm and jumped back to his sensei, who had already taken care of the clone with Hinata and Sasuke. Zabuza and Kakashi jumped back and Zabuza began to make hand seals. Ushi, Saru, Yu, N, I, Tori, Ushi, Uma, Tori, N, Tora, Mi, Ushi, Hitsuji, Mi, Hitsuji, Ni. Ushi, Saru, Yu, N, I, Tori, Ushi, Uma, Tori, N, Tora, Mi, Ushi, Hitsuji, Mi, Hitsuji, N. Kakashi started to make the same hand seals Zabuza made until he caught up to him. He then began to imitate Zabuza's every movement. Jin Saru, Tori, Tatsu, Tori, Ushi, Uma, Hitsuji, Tora, Mi, N, Saru, Yu, I, Tatsu, Hitsuji, N, Ushi, Saru, Tori, Jin N, I, Tori. Both Jonins finished their hand seals at the same time. The water they were standing on began to churn. Suiton, Suryuden no Jutsu. Behind both Jonin, a pillar of water rose into the air where they took the form of dragons with yellow eyes. The two dragons clashed and cancelled each other out, exploding into a shower of water that washed over everyone. Whoa! Is that a ninjutsu? Naruto asked. Yes, a very powerful one though, Kurenai answered as she looked around the clearing. Something was bothering her. Kakashi and Zabuza were clashing blade and kunai before they jumped away. Zabuza then ran around the water, Kakashi copying his every movement. Zabuza's eyes widened in shock as Kakashi even copied his Kirigakure no Jutsu stance. It's as if he knows what I'm going to do next. Kakashi finished Zabuza's thoughts, much to his shock. Is he reading my mind? Zabuza thought. He's looking at me with that freaky eye of his. Kakashi shocked Zabuza yet again. Zabuza growled, all you're going is copying me like a damn monkey. He then began to make some hand seals when he saw a shadow behind Kakashi. Zabuza froze when the shadow cleared up, revealing him behind the Konoha Jonin. Is that me? Is this a genjutsu? Zabuza thought as his mind tried to comprehend what was happening. Meanwhile, Kakashi finished the same hand seals that Zabuza made and executed the jutsu he was about to perform. Suiton, Daibakufu no Jutsu. Kakashi shouted as the water began to swirl around him. What? But I was just about to perform that jutsu. Zabuza cried out in disbelief. He was then swept up in a giant vortex that thrashed him around like a rag doll. The water vortex then tore through the forest, tearing down trees as they stood in the water's path. The Nukenin was then thrown against a tree, cracking the wood as he was pushed against it. Several kunai flew through the air and embedded themselves on various parts of Zabuza's upper body, just not hitting any vital spots. Zabuza cried out in agony as his flesh was pierced. Can you see the future? Zabuza asked as he looked up at Kakashi, who was standing on a tree branch. Yes, and your future is death, Kakashi declared as he raised up another kunai and prepared to strike it into the Nukanin's neck. But before Kakashi could do anything, two Senbon needles flew through the air and stabbed Zabuza in the neck. Zabuza's eyes went wide in shock as he slumped over in death. Everyone looked up to see a young teenager in a white mask with red wavy designs that had the symbol for Kirigakure on the forehead. He had black hair gathered up in a white bun with two locks falling down each side of his mask. He wore a pinstriped outfit that stopped at his knees underneath a green haori with white edges and a brown sash wrapped around his waist. You were right, he is dead, the mysterious person said. Who's that? Hinata asked. He's a hunter ninja from Kirigakure no Sato, Kakashi answered as he kept his eye on him. Kurenai leapt towards Zabuza's body and placed her fingers on his neck for a momnet before pulling away. No pulse, he's dead, Kurenai said. I've been tracking Zabuza for a long time, waiting for an opportunity like this, the hunter said as he jumped down and landed on the ground. I was starting to think that I would never be able to carry out my assignment. Kurenai sighed and walked back to the Genin and Tazuna. Kakashi still kept his eye on the hunter ninja as he picked up Zabuza's body, Kubikarabocho still attached to the dead man's back. I'll be sure to mention your help to Mizukage-sama. You may get a part of the bounty if he's in a generous mood. The hunter ninja then vanished in a shunshin with Zabuza's body. No! Something's wrong. Kakashi thought as he made an attempt to move forward. But he slumped to the ground face first. Kakashi-sensei! Sakura screamed. Damn it, I'm practically out of chakra, Kakashi mumbled as Kurenai picked him up and threw an arm over her shoulder to support him. Kurenai then took command since Kakashi was out of commission at the moment. Sasuke, assist Kiba. Sakura, I want you to carry Akamaru. Are you nuts? There's no way I'd touch that smelly dog. Sakura screeched. Kurenai aimed her ki at Sakura and said, I gave you an order Genin and you will carry it out. Scared for her life, Sakura picked up Akamaru, who whimpered as he smelt Sakura's scent, but did nothing. Let it be known that Akamaru tried to stay away from Sakura due to the gallons of perfume that she would put on each day. Are you the client? Kurenai asked as she turned to Tazuna. Yes, my name is Tazuna, the bridge builder answered. Kurenai nodded and asked, how far are we from your home? We need to get these three to get some form of medical treatment. Tazuna nodded and said, yes of course, my house is about a half hour from here. Excellent, Shino, I want you in the center of the group and surround us with your bugs to detect any more enemies. Hinata, I want you to take point and activate your Byakugan every 5 minutes. Naruto, you're going to cover us from behind, Kurenai said as she began to follow Tazuna towards his home. Later Tazuna's house. Tsunami, I'm home. Tazuna shouted as he opened the door to his house. A young woman with long dark hair appeared in the doorway and hugged Tazuna. She was wearing a pink shirt with red trimmings and a blue dress. Tucson. You're home. Tsunami exclaimed as she hugged her father. Oh? Who are these people? She asked when she saw the Konoha ninja behind Tazuna. These are the ninja that protected me on the way here, Tazuna said. Ma'am, can we please come inside? 3 of us need some medical attention, Kurenai asked. Oh. Yes, please come in, Tsunami ushered everyone inside the house. Just then, a little boy wearing green overalls and a fisherman's hat walked downstairs. Ka-chan, who are these people? He asked Tsunami. Tsunami smiled and said, these are the ninja that helped your Gigi get home safely. The boy glared at the Konoha shinobi and said, they should just leave, they're going to die. He then ran upstairs. Inari! Tsunami yelled. Who does that little brat think he is? Naruto growled, not liking Inari's attitude. Hinata put a hand on his shoulder and said, I'm sure that Inari-san didn't mean it. Naruto calmed down and sent a grateful smile at Hinata, who just blushed and began to poke her index fingers together. "Do you have anywhere I can put him?" Kurenai asked, gesturing to the comatose Kakashi. Tsunami nodded. "Yes, there's a guest room upstairs, let me show you." She then led Kurenai upstairs, leaving everyone else downstairs. "Man, this was supposed to be a simple escort mission," Kiba said as Sasuke helped him sit on a nearby chair. Sakura handed Akamaru to his master, who rubbed the dog's back soothingly. Naruto sighed and said, "Iruka-sensei always told us something like this would happen." Kiba looked at him with a confused expression and asked, "When was that lesson?" "I believe it was when you were absent because of an Inuzuka holiday," Shino answered. "I think it was breeding day," Hinata said, blushing heavily at the thoughts that entered her head when she thought about the specifics of the day entered her mind. Only her thoughts involved her and a certain blonde person in place of dogs. She quickly turned away and wiped her nosebleed before anyone could notice. "Oh right, every single clan member needs to be there to help control the dogs and make sure they're out of sight," Kiba explained. "Is that why you were covered in scratches and bite marks when you came in the next day?" Naruto asked. Kiba paled at the memory of what happened and just nodded in confirmation. Kurenai and Tsunami then came back downstairs and stood before the genin while Tazuna's daughter went to the kitchen counter. "I think it's time we turned in for the night," Kurenai said. "But, there's a problem with the rooming. There isn't enough space for everyone in either Tsunami-san's room, or the guest room, and Tazuna's room is too small for anyone else, so a boy and a girl will have to sleep in the living room. I nominate me and Sasuke-kun," Sakura yelled. Once everyone regained their hearing, Kurenai turned to face Sakura and gave her another glare that made the pinkette shrink in fear. "You two will not be paired together because you will let your personal feelings get out of hand and cause something bad for everyone," Kurenai told her. "Plus, I don't want to have Sasuke be near a fangirl Amy more than he needs to be. He's already been traumatized by Itachi." Kiba then motioned for Kurenai to come closer so he could whisper something. Kurenai came closer and listened to what Kiba had to say, and a small mischievous grin came on her face before she pulled away. "How about we draw kunai to decide?" Kurenai suggested. She then pulled out several kunai and placed a genjutsu on one of them so that there was a red mark on one of the handles. She then closed her hand around the kunai so nobody could see that mark, and shuffled the kunai around a little before holding out her hand. The girls all grabbed one and it was Hinata who had the marked kunai. "Looks like Hinata's sleeping in the living room," Kurenai said. The young Hyuga blushed when everyone's attention was on her. Kurenai then pulled out another kunai and added it to the group before shuffling them again. "She better not get stuck with Sasuke-kun." "Yeah. He's ours. Cha." Sakura and her inner self growled. The boys pulled their kunai and revealed that it was Naruto who had the marked kunai. "I'll be sleeping in the same room as Naruto-kun." Hinata squealed in her head. "Oh no. Hayashi-sama's gonna kill me if he finds out about this. But that's only if Hitomi Oba-chan doesn't get to me first." Naruto panicked. Kurenai quietly giggled when she saw Naruto's panicked face and Hinata's dreamy one. Later, when everyone was getting ready to go to sleep, Naruto was sitting on the pull-out bed that came from the sofa. He was wearing his black shirt and green shorts that had white stripes on them. Naruto swore that he had his sleeping cap in his bag, but he guessed he forgot it back in Konoha. Meanwhile, Hinata was in the bathroom looking herself over in the mirror. She had reread a chapter of How to Get Your Crush to Notice You, a book given to her by Hanabi a year ago. That particular chapter had talked about a situation similar to the one she was in. Hinata took a deep breath as she tried to calm herself. She then reached into her bag and pulled out the final piece of her pajamas that was sure to catch Naruto's attention. Naruto was laying down on the bed when he heard soft footsteps coming down the hallway. Naruto looked up, only for his jaw to introduce itself to the floor. Hinata was standing there while slightly blushing. She was wearing lavender shorts that just reached the top of her knees. She also wore a matching shirt that was cut off at the bottom, leaving a little of her stomach exposed. But the thing that really caught Naruto's eye was his sleeping cap that was resting on her head. "Hello, Naruto-kun. I hope you don't mind, but my head was a little cold," Hinata greeted as she turned her gaze over to the blonde while giving a small, cute smile. Naruto began to blush at how cute Hinata looked. "So, how are we gonna sleep?" Naruto asked. One of us could sleep on top of the covers," Hinata suggested. Naruto smiled at the idea and said, "You're so smart, Hinata-chan. I never would have thought about that." Hinata blushed under the praise. She then got underneath the covers and began to snuggle into the pillow. Naruto laid down and placed his hands behind his head before closing his eyes and falling asleep. Hinata gazed at Naruto as he slept, looking intently at his peaceful face. Deciding to fulfill a part of her curiosity, she reached over and lightly scratched one of his whisker marks. She pulled away instantly when Naruto let out a mix between a moan and a purr. Hinata began to giggle when she saw that Naruto had a happier look on his face. She closed her eyes and went to sleep with a smile on her face. Konoha. The Sandaime was doing one of his favorite pastimes when he was done being Hokage for the day, painting. He was painting a picture of the Hokage monument and had just finished making the Yandame's face. He was contemplating whether to put Naruto's face in place of the Godlike, or to leave it blank. He decided to start making Naruto the Godlike, thinking that the painting would make a good birthday present for the Jinchuriki. Hokage-sama, an Anbu, greeted as he shunshined into the room. Hiruzen sighed and put down his paintbrush before addressing the Anbu. "Yes, Hummingbird, what is it?" Hummingbird was one of Hiruzen's personal Anbu members, and the leader of the Route Surveillance Squad. Even though Danzo was one of Hiruzen's former teammates, he kept too many dark secrets that could harm Konoha. "We found something that you will want to see," Hummingbird said as he pulled out a scroll and unsealed a folder before placing it on the desk. Hiruzen took the folder and opened it before reading one sentence, and his eyes widened in complete and utter shock. "Are you certain about this?" Hiruzen asked as he stared at the information. "Our mole is absolutely certain about this, he's seen it for himself," Hummingbird said. Hiruzen sighed, "Things were going to get really crazy around here. We need to assemble a team, we can't allow Danzo to get away with this. We also have to make it look like an escape so he doesn't suspect anything," Hiruzen said. "I'll get on it right away. Do you want Tenzo on the team?" the Anbu asked. "Yes, we'll need his knowledge of the base layout in order to make this the perfect breakout," Hiruzen said. Hummingbird nodded and shunshined away, leaving the aged Hokage to his thoughts. Tezuna's house. Kurenai sat up in her bed as she tied her headband onto her forehead, ready to work for the day. Looking around, she saw that Sakura was still asleep and that Tsunami was also out of bed and downstairs making some breakfast. The female Jonin walked downstairs and saw that Kiba was already awake along with Akamaru, with amused expression on his face. "What's so funny?" Kurenai asked. Kiba just smiled and jerked his head to the left. Kurenai looked over and saw something that caused her to almost burst out laughing. On the bed in the living room were a sleeping Naruto and Hinata, but that wasn't the funny part. What was funny to Kurenai was the fact that they shifted during the night and ended up in an amusing position, since neither of them would be caught dead like that. Hinata had her head resting on Naruto's chest and had her arms wrapped around his torso like a small child when they went to sleep with their favorite teddy bear, also pinning one of his arms against his body. Naruto had one arm draped over her back protectively. Not wanting to let this cute moment go to waste and be forgotten, Kurenai took out her camera and snapped a picture of the two. This would make great blackmail, Kurenai thought sinisterly. "This is the only time I've ever seen Naruto not move in his sleep," Kiba said. Kurenai gave him a look and asked, "Do you watch him sleep?" Kiba shook his head and told her, "Nah, it's just that whenever me, him, Shikamaru, Choji and sometimes Shino would have a sleepover, he would always move around in his sleep. Sometimes he kicked the person next to him." Kurenai giggled at the image in her head of a sleeping Naruto kicking Kiba in the head. She then went over to the bed and opened the blinds, letting the sunlight shine onto Naruto's closed eyes. Naruto groaned as the light shone on him and woke him up. He went to stretch his arms, only to find that one of them was pinned to his body. He opened his eyes to see something blue in his vision. As soon as his vision cleared, he saw that the blue thing was Hinata's head on his chest, causing him to blush furiously. "Help!" Naruto squeaked as he tried to squirm his way out, but Hinata just tightened her grip. He looked over and saw that Kiba and Kurenai were just standing there while holding in their laughter. Naruto poked Hinata in the side, causing her to slightly move, but nothing else happened. Seeing that her feet were bare, Naruto sent over a few threads and had them wiggle over her soles. The results were instantaneous. Hinata began to squirm while letting out soft giggles. She began to move around, but still held on to Naruto like he was a lifeline. He was able to slip his pinned arm out and then scribbled his fingers all over Hinata's sides. The young Hyuga woke up and burst out laughing and rolled off of Naruto to try and get away from him. Naruto retracted his threads and observed Hinata as she laid down on the bed, hugging her feet close to her while letting out a few more giggles. "Naruto-kun, you're evil." Hinata huffed as she tried to catch her breath. Naruto just chuckled and got off of the bed before heading to the bathroom to change. Hinata looked up and saw that Kiba and Kurenai finally let out their laughter while Akamaru barked in amusement. "What's so funny?" Hinata asked, already blushing. Kiba grinned and said, "Oh, nothing, just watching you two snuggle with happy grins on your faces." Hinata shook her head in denial, but stared with wide eyes when Kurenai pulled out the picture she took. "You seemed very happy with your situation," Kurenai said with a grin. Hinata then fainted in embarrassment, causing the two to laugh. Naruto exited the bathroom, changed into his normal attire, and looked down at the fainted Hinata before seeing the two laughing shinobi. He then grew an evil grin. "Kurenai-sensei! Don't eat the last cinnamon bun!" Naruto yelled. Kurenai raised her eyebrow in confusion while Kiba paled and backed away from the older woman. The next thing Kurenai knew, she was flat on her back with a crazy Hinata grabbing the front of her dress with a crazed look in her eyes. "Where is it?" Hinata screamed. Kurenai stared at her student with shocked eyes while Naruto rolled around laughing in the background. His laughter knocked Hinata out of her crazed state and she looked around to see that she was pinning her sensei to the floor. "Eep!" Hinata jumped back in shock and grabbed her clothes before racing into the bathroom. Kurenai wondered if Hinata had somehow discovered the Hiration. "What was that?" Kurenai asked as she got up. Naruto got up while still smiling and said, "Hinata-chan thinking that you were going to eat a cinnamon bun." "The same thing happened to Naruto on the first day of the academy," Kiba muttered. Akamaru barked in agreement. He then turned to Naruto and asked, "So what's with the thread ability? You never showed that in the academy." Naruto contemplated whether or not to tell Kiba about the Jiongu when he remembered that he was one of his best friends in the academy. "Can you keep a secret?" Naruto asked. Kiba nodded and Naruto asked Kurenai to make sure that nobody else of Team 7 was around, to which she confirmed. Naruto had already told the rest of Team 8 after 2 months on the job, feeling that he could trust them. Naruto then went to explain his Jiongu and what it does to Kiba and Akamaru. Kiba whistled and said, "That's a cool ability, makes you a badass ninja. Though the whole make my extra hearts fight thing creeps me out a little." "Yeah, it was a little disturbing at first, but I got used to it," Naruto said. "There is something that I forgot to ask about your hearts," Kurenai began. "How do you sleep with them on your back? Doesn't it bother you?" Naruto grinned and snapped his fingers. Sneaking into the house through the front door was Fox and Titan. The two constructs then walked over to Naruto before reattaching themselves to his back underneath his coat. "I let them out when I sleep," Naruto said. "I found out on the first night I put the heart in the mask that it can be a little uncomfortable." "Ha! Always count on Naruto to find a way out of a problem," Kiba said. Kurenai just shook her head and went to assist Tsunami in making breakfast. Hinata walked out of the bathroom, dressed and still sporting a blush on her face. Kiba grinned and asked, "Any reasons I'm smelling pheromones this morning?" Hinata blushed a burning red and ran into the kitchen, leaving Kiba to fall out of the chair laughing. Later, everyone except Kakashi were in the kitchen eating breakfast. It wasn't anything special, just some steamed rice and grilled fish. "So what are we going to do, Kurenai-sensei?" Naruto asked. The female jonin put down her chopsticks and said, "Well, there was something that I realized last night. Zabuza is alive." To say that the genin were shocked would be an understatement. Sakura paled in horror, Kiba and Hinata looked worried, Akamaru whimpered and hid himself in Kiba's jacket, Naruto and Shino showed no outward emotion, and Sasuke smirked at the chance to fight a strong opponent again. "Why do you think that, sensei?" Hinata asked. "That hunter ninja, he used Senbon needles to take down Zabuza. Senbon are meant to incapacitate or help with acupuncture. But that hunter struck Zabuza in an area in the neck that will put someone in a death-like state. I must have missed the pulse when I was checking him," Kurenai said. "So he was an accomplice," Shino told her. Kurenai nodded. "Most likely. Hunter ninjas also destroy the body right away after taking the head. Taking anything other than the head or what the Kage wants from the nuke is considered treason. So we might have to fight both of them eventually," Naruto noted. "Yes, but Zabuza's injuries will take at least a week to heal, so we have time to train and prepare," Kurenai said. She then got up and said, "I'm going to check on Kakashi and see if he's up." Kurenai went upstairs and entered Kakashi's room to see the copycat sitting up and rubbing his normal eye. "How are you feeling?" Kurenai asked. Kakashi turned to her and said, "Feeling better, thought I can't feel my legs too much, might have strained them a little." "Take it easy then," Kurenai told him. "Do you know that Zabuza's alive?" Kakashi nodded. "I was about to say something, but I collapsed and couldn't tell you or the kids. I was planning on taking your team to train with mine to help them prepare for whenever Zabuza comes back," Kurenai said. Kakashi nodded and laid back down again, closing his eye to relax. Kurenai went back downstairs and took the genin outside and into the nearby forest. She brought them to an area where there was a nearby lake and large thick trees. "What are we doing here?" Sasuke asked, annoyed by it being an area where he couldn't practice any of his katan jutsu. "We're going to work on your chakra control, but first, I need to know what Kakashi's been teaching you guys," Kurenai told him. "We've been working on teamwork exercises," Kiba told her. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. "And? That's it," Kiba said. Kurenai sighed and tossed a kunai to each member of Team 7 before having them face a tree. "Since Kakashi seems to look like he doesn't know how to be a proper teacher, you guys are going to learn how to climb trees." "But we learned how to do that in the academy," Sakura protested. Kurenai just sent her a sideways glance and walked up to a tree before walking up the tree. The members of Team 7 stared at her in awe at the female jonin. "How did you do that?" Kiba asked. "You gather chakra in the soles of your feet and use it to climb the tree. But be careful, if you use too much you'll go flying off, and using too little won't allow your feet to stick to the tree," Kurenai explained. "Use the kunai to mark your progress." "And what are they going to do?" Kiba asked, motioning to teammate. "We already know this exercise, so we're going to learn the water walking technique," Hinata said. Sasuke glared at them with jealousy, seeing that they already knew something that he didn't. Kurenai popped in a soldier pill and made a Kage Bunshin to watch Team 7, and then took her team to the nearby lake. Now then, water walking is the same as tree walking, but instead of just letting out a set amount of chakra, you have to constantly change it because of the moving water, Kurenai explained. She then focused chakra into her feet and walked onto the lake, like how Kakashi and Zabuza did when they fought. "Hinata, I want you to use your Byakugan and tell me what you see," Kurenai said as she faced her students. Hinata nodded and activated her Byakugan before taking a close examination at Kurenai's feet as they expelled chakra. "You're sending out chakra at stronger points when the water shifts in order to keep your balance," Hinata said. Kurenai nodded and said, "Very good, now I want you guys to try this, but you should remove your jackets so you don't get a cold." Naruto nodded and took off his trench coat, revealing his masks to the world. He then released them and had Fox and Titan hide in the trees in case Sasuke or Sakura came by. Shino hesitated a moment before taking off his coat, revealing a black shirt with mesh armor underneath. Hinata had the hardest time as she was very nervous about taking off her jacket. She was self-conscious about her appearance and was afraid about getting any negative comments. Deciding to risk it, she took off her jacket, revealing her light blue blouse underneath that hugged her body somewhat. When Hinata looked up, she saw Naruto turned away with a large blush, Shino turned away with red ears, and Kurenai staring at her with small hints of jealousy. "Is something wrong?" Hinata asked nervously. "I'm just jealous," Kurenai told her. "I never had a figure that good when I was a genin." Hinata just blushed and looked away, but on the inside, "Naruto-kun's blushing. That means he finds me attractive." Hinata squealed in her head, marking up her little victory. The three genin then started to practice. Naruto added too much chakra and was launched into the air, landing in a tree. Shino added too little and sunk into the water, only to come up later with an angry buzzing sound as his insects left his body to get away from the cold water. "I think my insects are angry with me," Shino said. "What tipped you off? The angry buzzing?" Naruto asked with some sarcasm. Hinata took a step on the lake and tested her technique. Once she was satisfied, she took several more steps. Eventually, she was 10 feet away from the shore and sunk only to her ankles. "Very good, Hinata, looks like those Hyugas are good for their chakra control lessons," Kurenai said. Naruto was sunk up to his chest and gave Hinata a grin that made her lose her focus, sending her into the lake with a shriek. She came back up with a gasp and practically flashed to the shore where she began to shiver, but what she didn't know was that Naruto was staring at her with a large blush since her wet shirt hugged her body more, resulting in Naruto getting a slight nosebleed. It didn't help that the heated chakra of the Kyuubi prevented the cold water he was in from knocking him out of his trance. Kurenai noticed this and lightly giggled, seeing that Naruto was attracted to Hinata. Next day bridge. Naruto was watching Tazuna since it was his turn for the day. Kakashi was better and able to help his team, but was restricted to crutches for the time being. Naruto was sitting on a beam while keeping an eye on Tazuna and his workers, not that there were a lot of them anyway. Tazuna was welding some metal together when one of the workers came up to him. "Yes, Gishi?" "What is it?" "I'm sorry, Tazuna, but I can't keep doing this," Gishi said. "Gado's going to make everything worse if we keep doing this." "Gishi, you can't do this. If you leave, then it'll take longer to finish the bridge. Do you want this country to remain poor and dying?" Tazuna asked. Gishi shook his head and said, "I just can't keep risking my family's lives like this." Tazuna shook his head and continued to work. "Then go, I have no need for cowards on this construction crew." Gishi sighed and walked off of the bridge. Tazuna then turned to Naruto and said, "It's been like this for a while. People are starting to get scared of Gado and are leaving to try and stay out of this. So you need workers?" Naruto asked as he hopped off the beam and stood before the elderly man. "Then I've got you covered. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." At least 100 copies of Naruto appeared. "Just tell them what you need done." Tazuna stared at the large group in disbelief before he shook his head and said, "You're just the kind of person I need. Let's get to work." Meanwhile in town, Hinata and Kiba were accompanying Tsunami through town as she went to pick up groceries. Kiba was able to stay on the tree for 10 minutes and Akamaru was able to stay on for 7, allowing them to accompany Tsunami since Shino was to watch the house. "Man, it's so depressing here," Kiba said as he looked around. Buildings were falling apart and surrounded by junk, and the people were practically wearing rags that looked like they were stitched together. "It's all because of Gado that the town is like this. Before he came here it was a very lively and happy place," Tsunami explained. "It's so sad," Hinata whispered. She felt a tug on the back of her jacket and whirled around to see a little girl who held up her hands and gave Hinata a smile. Realizing that the girl wanted food, Hinata dug into her pockets and pulled out a few pieces of candy and handed it to the girl. The girl's smile got bigger and she gave Hinata a quick hug before running off. Tsunami smiled at the scene and said, "We need more people like you around here." Kiba grinned and put in his 2 cents, "Yeah, Hinata's one of the kindest people in Konoha, and the only girl in our class with a brain." "Why do you say that?" Tsunami asked, raising an eyebrow. "All of the other girls have gone gaga over Sasuke, the guy with the duck hair," Kiba explained. "Why would they do that? He doesn't seem like anyone special," Tsunami said. Kiba couldn't help but grin and laugh, wondering how the Uchiha would take it if she said it to his face. Zabuza's hideout. The Kirigakure no Kijin was resting on his bed, the Kubikurabocho resting on the side of the bed. A small, ugly, fat man entered the room with 2 thugs and approached the sleeping Nuknin. "Ha! So much for the demon, you were beaten by a bunch of brats and their babysitters." Gato then went to reach for Zabuza's mouth bandages before his arm was gripped rather tightly by the fake hunter ninja. "Don't touch Zabuza-sama with your filthy hands," he growled. "Let go of my arm," Gato yelled as he struggled to get his arm free. The 2 thugs then popped their swords out of their scabbards and were about to attack until the fake hunter disappeared and reappeared with their swords at the thugs' throats. "Don't mess with me, I'm in a bad mood," he said. "Grr, you better kill that bridge builder or you'll never get paid," Gato yelled as he and his goons stormed out of the hideout. Zabuza, who was awake the whole time, turned to the hunter and said, "You didn't have to do that, Haku." Haku gave a small smile and said, "I know, but we need him around for a little while longer. It wouldn't be very beneficial to kill him until after we get paid." "That's if we get paid, he's been deducting from us for the tiniest problem," Zabuza groaned. Haku smirked and said, "Maybe we should raid his vault and leave when least expects it." "You are an evil genius," Zabuza praised. Several days later to Zuna's house. It was dinner time at the bridge builder's house once again. Today Tsunami had found some crab in the market for a reasonable price to go with the tuna, which Hinata politely asked to be off of her plate. The large group was eating dinner quietly when Sakura noticed something. "I noticed that the picture on the wall's torn, does it mean anything?" she asked. The family froze when Sakura spoke and the mood instantly turned somber. "The person in that photo was a hero," Tazuna said. Inari immediately got up and stormed up to his room. "Inari! Tucson! You know better than to talk about him like that in front of Inari," Tsunami scolded. Tazuna turned to her and said, "If he wants to deny the truth, then let him. I still believe that Kaiza was a hero." Tazuna then began to explain to the Konoha ninja about Kaiza and how he helped Nami in the past. From saving Inari from drowning to helping to close the dam in the flood. He also told them about how Gato had Kaiza's arms taken off before he was executed for resisting him. "This just makes me want to get this Gato guy even more," Naruto said as he gripped the edge of the table tightly. "I have to agree with you there, Naruto. I don't have any particular love for this country, but it would leave a bad taste in my mouth if we just left the country like this," Kakashi said. "Why do you still try?" Inari yelled, coming from the staircase, having not gone to his room in order to listen. "Because we've got a job to protect your Gigi, and we don't back down from a mission," Naruto said. "It doesn't matter. None of you will live if you fight against Gato. He's too strong to beat," Inari yelled. Naruto shrugged. "How can he be strong? We're ninja, and he's just a little man with money." The rest of the Konoha ninja nodded in agreement, except Sasuke and Sakura, because Sasuke wouldn't be caught dead agreeing with Naruto, and because Sasuke didn't agree with him. "Stop trying to be a hero. You don't even understand what we're going through because you all live comfortable lives. You don't understand what it means to suffer." The room temperature dropped several degrees, stopping Inari in his tracks and causing most of the occupants to start sweating. Everyone turned to see Naruto shaking with his hair shadowing his eyes. He then turned around and stormed out of the house, leaving most of the group to wonder what was his problem. That was the wrong thing to say, Kakashi said. What do you mean, sensei? Kiba asked. Kakashi sighed and began, Naruto's been alone for the first 4 years of his life and was kicked out of the orphanage at the age of 4 years old. The only people who cared for him were the Hokage, the Ichiraka family, and Tsunade-sama. Even then, he still felt alone until he met his first friend, Hinata. The young girl couldn't believe that she had such an impact on Naruto's life. You say that Naruto doesn't understand suffering, well, he goes home to an empty house every day while you still have your mother and grandfather. You say that I don't understand suffering? Well, let me tell you something, my mother died giving birth to me, my father killed himself after being scorned by the village for failing a mission, both of my best friends died right in front of my eyes, and my sensei who I thought of as a father sacrificed himself to save the village, Kakashi told the boy. So you tell me, do I know suffering or not? He then walked upstairs to his room. My family was killed all in one night, Sasuke said as he walked off to brood. Most of the village avoids my clan because of our special abilities, Shino said. Most of my clan hates me because I want to change tradition, Hinata whispered. Inari just said nothing and ran off into his room and slammed the door behind him. Next morning, Naruto was asleep in the clearing, having worked off his rage by throwing himself into his training. Currently, he was surrounded by trees that were either burned, slashed, impaled, or smashed. Haku had entered the clearing with a basket while searching for some herbs to help Hetsubuza. The fake hunter found Naruto and knelt down next to him, contemplating whether or not to kill him now. Haku sighed before deciding to shake Naruto awake. I'm too soft, Haku thought, watching as Naruto opened his eyes. Ugh, 5 more minutes Bachan. Naruto mumbled as he rubbed his eyes. He opened them to see a pretty woman standing over him. Naruto jumped to his feet and began to introduce himself with a blush. My name's Naruko Uzunako, I mean Naruto Uzumaki. She's almost as pretty as Hinata-chan. Wait, where did that come from? Nice to meet you, my name is Haku. What were you doing out here? Haku asked. Nothing much, just training, Naruto answered. Are you a ninja? Haku asked, setting down the basket. Naruto grinned and said, yeah, I'm aiming to be one of the best there is. Oh? But aren't you strong already? Haku asked, wanting to see Naruto's goals. Then Jinchuriki shook his head and told Haku, I need to be stronger, so that way I'll be able to help everyone who I care about. So you fight to protect your precious people, then that does make you strong, Haku told him. Naruto gave a confused look, so Haku continued, I believe that people can be truly strong when they are protecting a person who is precious to them. So do you have any precious people? Naruto asked. Yes, my father is the only person left in my life, Haku said. Must be nice to have him, Naruto muttered. What do you mean by that? Haku asked. I'm just wondering how nice it might feel to have parents, Naruto said. Haku raised an eyebrow and asked, don't you have parents? No, Naruto shook his head, I grew up as an orphan, nobody knows who they were, but I try not to think about since it doesn't matter anymore. I'm sorry, I can't even imagine what it might feel like to not know who your parents were, Haku said. Like I said, it doesn't matter, Naruto said. Well, it was nice speaking with you, but I should get back to my father in case he starts to worry, Haku said, standing up and grabbing the basket. Haku stopped before the edge of the forest and said, by the way, I'm a boy. Naruto stared there with his mouth on the floor. It's impossible for a guy to be almost as pretty as Hinata-chan. Gah! There it is again. Konoha. Hiruzen was sitting at his desk with a black eye, courtesy of Tsunade for not telling her about what Hummingbird found right away. But considering that he got the news late at night, she only gave him a light beating. He was very lucky when Tsunade understood that she couldn't be a part of the mission, since stealth was never her strong point. The Sandaime stared at a map of route headquarters that Tenzo had made from memory. He was marking areas that seemed like good places to enter while writing down notes about the base. "Hokage-sama, everyone's ready," Hummingbird said as he entered the room. The Hokage nodded and got up before following the Anba member into a separate room where 6 other Anba members were. They were Tenzo, Falcon, Boar, Deer, Chameleon, and Wolf. All of them are top members of the Root Surveillance Squad. "Hokage-sama," all the Anba members stood up to address their leader. "Please be seated," Hiruzen ordered. The Anba complied and the Sandaime took his place at the head of the table. He opened the files that were at his end and said, "I'm sure that you all know about the mission you're going on, but I'll repeat it in case anyone forgot. Our mole within Root has discovered that Danzo has been keeping 2 very important people captive in his base in the attempt to create the ultimate shinobi, and one of them is the result of that experiment, but is considered a failure due to not growing as fast as Danzo has hoped. So I need you to go into the base and break them out. Hokage-sama, wouldn't it be easier to just storm in and demand them like you did for me?" Tenzo asked. Hiruzen shook his head and said, "It only worked to get you because Kakashi already knew of your existence and informed me, and because I used the argument that your abilities would be able to subdue Naruto should he ever lose control in the village. Because nobody has made official contact with them, it would be practically impossible to get Danzo to hand them over." "What are the chances of running into any Root?" Wolf asked. "Not that much, the prisoners are kept within an abandoned part of the facility where other failures are. So there isn't that much of a chance to encounter anybody," Hiruzen told them. Deer then asked, "Are we to make it look like a breakout to avoid any suspicion? If you can manage it, then do it. Any more questions?" Hiruzen asked. Falcon then asked, "Do these 2 have any relation to, you know who?" "That question will be answered when Tsunade gets to look at them, until then we aren't absolutely sure." The Sandaime then got up and told the group, "The mission will commence as when Hummingbird deems necessary." Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see next part of it, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Peace.